Permit me to invite Dr. LAWANSON for the next presentation. Mrs. LAWANSON is a registered town planner and currently the head of Department Urban and Regional Planning, University of Lagos. She is a 2013 World Social Science Fellow of the International Social Science Council, Paris. She serves on the editorial board of 7 scholarly journals and is a member of the executive committee of West African Built Environment Research Conference. Mrs. LAWANSON represents the Association of African Planning Schools on the International Editorial Board of the Global Planning Educators Network. She is a member of the Human Development and Capability Association, Harvard Global Equity Initiative, as well as the Nigerian Institute of Management, International Society for City and Regional Planners, and the Urban Affairs Association. She is also a member of Senate at the University of Lagos. Her current interest is in the urban poor of Lagos metropolis, their lifestyles, livelihoods, and survival strategies, and how these affect urban development and environmental sustainability. I think it is in that light that she will discuss the informality in Nigerian urban development today.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. I was speaking about the nice, expensive buildings and about people who have a lot of income to actually own property and then leverage on these properties. But I think my assignment here today is to give us a bit of perspective about the reality of the Nigerian urban, and then to frame our research going forward to capture, oh, excellent, the light is back. I was thinking during the talk, I just want to share a few thoughts on how we can reframe our research methods, our research journey. I'm an urban planner, so most of what I'll be saying will be from the urban planning perspective, but I think it goes for all of us as built environment practitioners. So by way of introduction, the Nigerian cities generally reflect the vision of the colonial masters, and that vision is typified by dual cities. Within a city, you have the GRA and you have the slums, and that is the norm for all Nigerian cities. In Lagos, we have Ikoyi and we have Obalende, we have Apapa, we have Ajegunle right next, adjacent to one another. And the body language of the government, who has the mandate to see to the welfare of all citizens, rich and poor, is that the poor really have no place in the city. Informality is rejected. Our laws, our protocols, are the instruments of government, the operations of government, the activities of government point to the fact that the informal is not accepted in the city. And literature attests that poverty and slum urbanism will continue to feature significantly in African urban life. And I think it is our responsibility as researchers to find solutions to poverty and slum urbanization. So in the Nigerian situation is such that we have at least 774 urban areas. Every local council is an urban area. And we have 70% of our population living in informal settlements, and a significant proportion are moving into the peripheral areas of city, exporting the slum life even into the rural areas that had a measure of organization. And so if we're not careful and if we don't take proper, quick action, then we're all going to be in a mess because there will be no method to our madness as it is. And running side by side or alongside with informality is the gross urban inequality, where we have the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. The divides are getting much larger, and these have consequences for our security, for the progress of our business concerns, and also for the survival and the thriving of us as individuals and as urban citizens. So the thrust of my paper is going to focus on those instruments of urban development. The literature, Watson in 2011, and Agbola and Watson shortly thereafter concluded that laws, regulations, and professional practices linked to urban development have significant effect on the ability of the poor to survive. And gaps exist. There are gaps in the legislation, there are gaps in the administration, and there are gaps in the education or training of those who are saddled with the responsibility of managing our cities. For the purpose of this paper, I'll just talk briefly on legislation and administration and focus on education. We're researchers here, we're teachers, and it's our responsibility to fix it. And we can only have lasting solutions if we fix it from the very root of the issue. So with regards to laws, the Township Ordinance of 1917 was the one that started the dual city syndrome because it had special reservation areas for the colonial masters, and then the native areas were largely neglected. So those two cities were growing side by side, one organized, well-planned with facilities and services, and the other totally devoid. And then it's filtered down to the Town and Country Planning Ordinance of 1946, which was the predominant urban planning legislation for upward of 50 years in the country. And the main thrust of that law was development control. It assumed a gradual rate of urbanization. And after that, the Nigerian Urban and Regional Planning Law, Decree 88 of 1992, came to be seemingly to fix the problems of the earlier law. But unfortunately, the focus was on development control, and the idea of citizen participation in the development process was ignored, and at least at the national level, it is yet to be implemented, and it is only being implemented in fewer than 10 states across the country. So the conclusion with the law is that the law does not recognize the urban reality, which is informality, and something must be done about that. Then concerning administration, our cities are managed by master plans. Master plans are good, but they're rigid. And sometimes they do not recognize the dynamism of our times. And unfortunately, the master plans that have been prepared for most cities in Nigeria have been based on poor data, lack of public participation, and poor implementation, mostly due to political considerations. And then again, the pace of urbanization outstripped the provisions of those plans. So we can conclude that the administrative protocols governing the managing of our cities have failed because they have not recognized the place of the informal. And then education. I'm an urban planner, so I'll talk about urban planning education. Planning education in Nigeria is similar to what obtains in most Commonwealth countries, and it is very early modernist, is architecturally inspired, and it is very technical. Most of what we train our students to do is how to do good design, how to, design nice cities that complement each other, that the uses move into one level and the other. And we emphasize more on the technical knowledge, more on the physical aspects, the physical beauty of the city than the underlying reasons, the underlying nuances in the dynamics of the city. And from a survey of urban planning curricula across the country, we discovered that only 2 courses are tangentially related to the informal sector. There's urban renewal studio, urban renewal design, and urban renewal process as a 2-unit course in the 3rd year usually. And only the University of Lagos takes a course on the informal sector and the community economy. It's a 2-unit elective course in the final year, and many of the students don't like to do it. If the reality of our time is that informality is a clear and present issue, we're not training people who can respond to this issue. And the conclusion also is that there are gaps, there are major gaps in our education. And I think we need a paradigm shift. The paradigm shift has to be all-encompassing. It has to move from the legislation. It has to filter down into the administrative processes. And then there must be something fundamental that must change in how we train these city managers and also in the nature of research that we do. So I came up with this small diagram that we must change in our vision. The idea of a city that is built around economic neoliberal ideals is the idea of a failed city which we currently experience. We must move beyond that to a city that is acceptable to all, a city that is an all-inclusive city, and this is termed an inclusive urbanization. And then we must move beyond the preparation of master plans based on fictitious data at times to master plans or other plans, developing our cities, projecting for our development based on accurate data generated through mixed methods research. And then our methods of managing the city must also change. Our methods of research must also change from this non-participatory, the researcher as God, to a more participatory process, which includes the co-production of knowledge. So I'll just speak briefly on each of these. The inclusive city, I think, is a city. The mayor of Sydney said that great cities do not come by accident. They emerge through choices we make and the commitment we bring to ensuring they are sustainable, equitable, inclusive, stimulating, and beautiful. And I think it captures the essence of what all of us want, even the economic, the people who are governed by economic ideals, who want to make the top dollar. Sydney has been adjudged the most beautiful city in the world, the most livable city, the most sustainable city. And I think the idea that inclusivity is an important indices of city development, we must embrace it and we must advance it. It's utopian because a lot of the times the question is asked that what do the poor really bring to the table? But it is a realistic utopianism, because if we don't bring them to the table, then they're going to come to the table in spite of us. So in generating our data, I discovered that most of us that do research in the built environment, studies area, we focus a lot on the numbers. What are the facts? What are how many people, we project, what's the housing deficit? What are the issues? What's the population? How many people live here? How many low income, high income, and all of that? But the nuances, the issues, the narrative behind these facts, I think are very important. Because sometimes you find out that people reject our plans that are based on facts and figures because of underlying cultural considerations, because of some political considerations, and it's important for us as researchers to find out the whys. It is important for us to go beyond finding out the what of our research questions to find out the whys. So mixed methodology research advances the position that both qualitative and quantitative research in combination provide a better understanding of a research problem or the issue at hand, rather than one research approach at a time. In the UK, for example, a lot of emphasis is on qualitative research. They like to do interviews, they like to take transect walks and all of that. But sometimes when you do that for a small group of people, you cannot reproduce that model across the population. We don't have a lot of funds, but we like to go into the field, get a lot of data. Because of the lack of data that we have in this part of the world, we have to do a lot of case studies, and then project all the data. But I discovered that when you put both in perspective, you get the data. With that, you are able to have technical background to finding a solution. But by the time you find out the whys, the facilities manager talked about, the relationship management and the emotional dissatisfaction of his client. I think it also there's a lot to be done in qualitative research in getting our plans to succeed. So why adopt mixed methodology research? The reasons are many, but it expands the community of practice. We look beyond our personal scope and we look to other reasons for why things should be done or how they can be done in a better way. The intuitive argument, because beyond looking at facts and figures, we also look at the real life situation and experiences of our research population. And then co-production of knowledge. Co-production of knowledge is a concept that is coming to play a lot in the urban studies movement. And it says that beyond taking our study area or our research area as something to be studied, we need to understand what is going on there, and we need to understand it with the final beneficiaries of our plan. It talks about a collaborative research process that takes the community into consideration, in which the community goes along with us. It is a learning experience both for us as researchers and the community. So co-production talks about the needs, the reason why we need co-production in the academic community is because the people know things that we don't know. We know the formulas, we know how to test the hypothesis, but we don't know the real life experiences that these people are going through, and we don't also know the responses that have worked, the innovative strategies that they have developed in managing their urban challenges. And we also need co-production of urban knowledge because local actors have capabilities and assets that they can contribute to the process. So the benefits of co-production include reflexivity, where the researcher is able to live the experience of that community. And I think sometimes they tell us that you need to be very objective in the process, in the research journey, but I think sometimes your emotions help you to do better research. If you are able to engage with the people that you're working with, you are able to drive a process that will go beyond finding solutions to actually working or doing an extra thing towards getting those suggestions or those strategies actually being implemented, to seeing your research come to life and affecting change. So the co-production helps us to move from the researcher as a reflective scientist to the researcher as an activist academic. So I just want to, share a few experiences from a project that we were working on the urban regeneration plan of Makoko. In 2012, July, thereabouts, the Marine Police came into Makoko community and they demolished houses. A lot of you are familiar with Makoko. Makoko is the Venice in Lagos. It's an informal community bordering the 3rd mainland bridge, and it's the houses on stilts. So there's a lot of value. It's different from what we're accustomed to. But the Lagos State government has a vision they call it the model mega city. They have a vision for a model mega city, and Makoko is a nuisance to that model. So they came and they demolished, and they were able to demolish about 4,000 residents of that community lost their houses. And then an NGO came and said, these are people's lives that are being destroyed, we need to step in. And then that's the Heinrich Böll Foundation, it's a German NGO. And they invited a few of us. They negotiated with the government, and the government said, okay, we won't demolish, but you have to give us a picture that is better than what is currently there. And that is where co-production is. At the point of the demolition, the people were distrustful, they were violent. But using the Heinrich Böll engaged CERAC. CERAC is a community advocacy NGO, and they were able to go in there and build the trust of the people, and then they were able to come up with a plan that, all right, let us develop an urban regeneration plan that will transform that community. But this time around, we're not going to produce the plan for you, we're going to work with you. Okay? So the work started, and Lagos State was amenable to it. Okay, do your plan and let's see it. And so at the end of the day, about 33 people covering 19 of them members of the Makoko community, in conjunction with the Department of Urban and Regional Planning here, the Department of Architecture here, the Robert Gordon University, the Heinrich Böll Foundation, an architecture firm in Switzerland. We came together and developed the plan. And in the developing of the plan, we adopted mixed methodology research. We had transect walks, we had focus group discussion, we had expert interviews, we took pictures, there were lived experiences, we administered questionnaires because an urban regeneration plan is a technical work. And at the end of the day, we came up with a plan, and there was a validation exercise. We took our maps and we took the map was also presented to the people. And the beauty of it was that in this plan, there was a response to climate change. And in expanding the canal, about 40 to 45 houses have to go. And guess what? The people of Makoko are willing to do the demolition of those houses themselves. They understand that development can be painful, but they are willing to take those sacrifices because they were engaged in the process from the very beginning. If the government comes and says, you guys are flooded in and we need to expand this canal, what the people of Makoko will say is that they want to demolish our houses. But when they are part of the process, they were willing to say, all right, we need to stretch this canal, and we know that it is the good for us all. So that's the process that we went through. At the end of the day, these were the partners in the regeneration plan. The plan was submitted in 2013, thereabouts, and the Lagos State received it, and we're waiting for feedback. We're hopeful that the feedback will be positive, but as I speak, some of the thrust of the regeneration plan was that the people are going to manage the plan, and so it was based on a case of urban livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods, and economic hotspots. As we speak, the economic hotspots are being developed. They are being constructed right now. They're going to be centered around sea life, fishing, and allied products. Since that's the livelihood of the people, we're trying to develop a model that will bring this out as a product. So we got a few mentions in the press, and in 2014, the plan was presented at the Architecture Biennale in Rotterdam. It was very well received, and it was very validating that what local people had contributed to was brought to a global stage and was celebrated. In 2014, the Makoko Urban Regeneration Plan was one of the 7 finalists of the Buckminster Fuller Challenge, which is a global competition of urban development projects. And I'm very happy to say that the work was done by people, you and I, but the only thing was that we dared to step out of the box and then develop a product based on collective strengths. And so in conclusion, I leave you with a challenge that you need to embrace your role as a researcher, as a teacher, and as an community advocate, all right? Because it is in the working out of these 3 roles that you are a complete academic. I want to leave on a bright note, so I'll say keep calm and have a nice day. Thank you.
And we saw something concerning the elites. And we got this impression that everything works well. But looking at her presentation and realizing that we have 70%, I think that's a conservative estimate. We have 70% of our people on the other side, and that is the actuality. The attention is very clear. Development control does not recognize those people who are in the majority, the urban poor, and administrative protocols for city governance has failed in that regard. Planning education is really too technical for people to understand. Basically tailored towards architecture. She called for a paradigm shift and inclusiveness using mixed research methods. But one interesting thing is that facts and figures are not enough, like what we have seen all along. It means that you have to be mindful of sensibilities of people, which is based on cultural and political inclinations. If you forgo those ones, you are less likely to come up with something that will be qualitative and acceptable. The case of Makoko, which they have taken as a case study, is also very interesting because it's it's on the other side with what we witnessed some years ago, I guess 1993, from Morocco. I think there was also Morocco, which the government took from top down. And if you go there today, you will see something else.